So, before this, I did another audio talking about the updates on the Patreon exclusive stories that both Jovin16 and Trouble TRO recently posted. But it also got me thinking about something, thinking about a very kind of unique, if not, I'm sure to a lot of people, weird question. And that is, well, as complicated as the question might be, the question obviously is, why do these artists that do the webcomics, and maybe the scripts for the webcomics, or those that write these stories, to be showcased on places like DeviantArt, For Infinite, Ink Bunny, or even Patreon, or fanfiction.net, why do they always make it seem so obvious, from the get-go, that one of the shape-shifting transformations they're going to have the characters go through that get these powers is, the liquefied state, basically the goo state, the slime state, the melt down into a puddle state, and then probably merge with somebody that's similar in status to become a new individual or something. Why do they make it so obvious? I mean, true, they don't come out and say it's going to happen in the synopsis, but pretty much if you followed any kind of story that has a similar tone with characters that have similar powers, then you know that's going to be the direction they go. And for some odd reason, I say with all due respect, no offense, for some odd reason, when the female characters get these powers, that's always the main area that they are bound to head to, that they're bound to try out. If not, right off the bat, but inevitably. Sometimes they even kind of give a hint that they're going in that direction, with, maybe one of the main characters actually doing it, but, accidentally or unbeknownst to them, they end up doing it, and then when they find out what they did, it intrigues them, it arouses them, especially if the story's of an erotic take, which most of these sometimes are, surprisingly. But yeah, sometimes, it'll take maybe a early portion of the story where one of the main characters that maybe shares, same powers with one of the friends, does it. And it's either, like I said, by accident or, out of nowhere, basically just like unbeknownst to them. And they roll with it. They actually have, fun with it because they now see the potential that their powers could do more than just, regular shape-shifting into other people or other things or whatever. But again, you have to wonder, why do the writers of these stories, whether they're webcomics or straight-up fanfics, OC fanfics sometimes, why do they make it so obvious that that's going to be the directive they go in? I'll tell you why. I think I know the answer, or at least I hopefully know the answer. It's because of the fact that they realize that if this kind of stuff was real for all of us, men and women, if this kind of power was available to us for real, that there would be a lot of things we do with it. There'd be a lot of different shapes, that we would try out, a lot of different forms we would go with. And basically, we would go, for, let's say, a break from reality, a little bit of relaxation, we would go with the form of liquefaction. And why? Because because of the fact that we're always told to be, when we're stressed and all that, sometimes we have a therapist, sometimes we have a psychiatrist, sometimes we have a meditationist, if you will, but they always tell us, be calm. Be calm like the sea. Go with the flow, right? Be calm with the sea, go with the flow. And what better way to really visually exemplify that than if you had these powers in real life, than to do just that. And I think that's why mainly you see these powers always, well, not powers, but you see these forms always being utilized in these stories. Mostly for NFSW reasons, erotic NFSW reasons, between a man and a woman or a woman and a woman. That, like I said, no offense, women always seem to be the ones, that get these powers. And, that's no joke. That's no joke whatsoever. They always seem to be the one that gets these powers. And anytime a story, has been written with them having these powers of shape-shifting, most of the time, whether it's with the male lover or the female lover, or the BFF, which turns into the female lover, they always seem to go this route. They always seem to eventually go this route when it comes to having intimacy. Like sometimes they'll try different, ways of intimacy and, basically maybe shapeshift certain parts of the body, if you know what I mean, to surprise, let's say, the female compatriot. They'll do all that. They will do stuff like that. And, not only will they do stuff like that, but they'll do other stuff as well. Like they'll let the imagination run wild. Like I said about Amanda and Nicole. I think I said this in the previous audio. Basically, their imagination, when they got their powers, they were able to do things that typically, you wouldn't think would be possible in real life. Like, in other words, they were able to shapeshift into various fictional characters or characters of myth and legend. Like I mentioned in the previous audio video, I think it was Nicole that turned herself into a vampiress, and along with turning herself into a vampiress, she also kind of gained the powers of a vampiress. In other words, she was able to hypnotize people and even use this new ability she got from just shapeshifting into this form to grant them whatever they wanted, even a change of form themselves temporarily. So, so you look at something like, that, and, you see, when you look at something like that, and it doesn't become that much surprising that, it doesn't become that much surprising that, basically, one of the forms, that they would want to explore is one that allows them to really get so intimate, with each other that sometimes, depending on how the story is written, the end result will be them merging together into one, and becoming someone different, even if it's, a result of them both sharing control of the new form, basically both mentally being inside, sharing basically the mind, the brain, or them flowing together, forming, and merging and forming into this, new being who's basically their own individual, whose mind is a hybrid, a merger of, both individuals that became that person. And again, sometimes, depending on the story, this is something that occurs with, women and men getting intimate with each other, and mostly, and I say it again with all due respect, no offense, the woman pulling off the gooiness. I mean, the man will do it too at times, depending on the story structure. Or sometimes it's both women that do it, or both male and female doing it, if they both have the powers. Like if both a male and a female do it, yeah, if you read the kind of stories that I've kind of looked at myself, upon suggestion, yeah, there is no doubt that things visually, if you imagine it in your mind, picture it in your mind by reading it, can get crazy. They can. Same with the woman. Same with a woman and a woman getting it on with each other. And sometimes it doesn't result in anything, at the end, except them being a mixed, gooey puddle on the bed or the floor that separates later on, but also sometimes it will result in, like I said, a merger and a fusion. And, you wonder, why do the writers make it so obvious that this is going to be something that they head into direction-wise with the story when they start writing these kind of stories, they're writing the scripts for the webcomics. It's like, why do they make it so obvious? And again, I think the reason they do it, like I said, to go back to the answer, is because they're basing it on how we and they themselves, would utilize these kind of powers. Like they're basically taking the characters in the story and they're saying, this is us, and this is how we would be using the powers back and forth. But then, when it comes to the melty, gooey, slimy liquefaction portion, that's their way of saying, especially if it's an NFSW thing, that, hey, this is what we would really like to do with our mates. Like, how we really like to get inside and, like really be one with them and flow through them and stuff like that. They basically take any derogatory eroticism word or statement that a man and a woman or a woman and a woman make towards each other during their time of intimacy. And they're basically saying, if we had these kind of powers, to liquefy, if you will, go through a liquefaction, we can make all those statements become reality. I know that sounds strange to say, but when you think about it, it's kind of true. It is kind of true. And it's a fact in a sense, and it's a fact in a sense when you think about it. But yeah, just, doing that previous audio video, like I said, it got me thinking, why make it so obvious? I mean, yeah, you may not, showcase it in the statement. You may not showcase it, I should say, in the synopsis or anything. And you may tell people, hey, I can't say much or anything because I would be spoiling. Here's the thing I look at. If you're going to go there, if the people that have followed your stories and your collab stories, and they know and see the pattern that the new story's going in, then why don't you just kind of hint at that, yeah, you're going to see this, but we're not going to say, when it's going to happen. We're not going to say what part, it's going to happen in. And if it's a multi-chapter deal, you could say, we're not going to tell you what chapter it's going to take part in. You could just come out and say, yeah, it's going to happen, but you're going to have to wait and see when it occurs and how it occurs. So to me, I think, that's why but to me, honestly, to get back to answering the question as best I can, I think that's why they utilize it, sometimes. They want to basically base it on how we in real life would, use these powers, and especially the liquefaction kind of portion of it, especially when it comes to, erotic intimacy down the line with our companions. And again, that's just my opinion. This is the way I look at it, if you kind of understand what I'm saying. But again, the one thing that does kind of get under my skin, irks me a bit, is why don't you just hint at the fact it's going to happen, but not say any more than that. Not say when it's going to happen, where or how. Just say it's going to happen, but you got to be patient. Because again, if you're doing these kind of stories and people know the pattern that you take, then it becomes obvious to them that, yeah, you're going to do it. It's just a matter of when and where. That's what I'm thinking. You know, that's what I'm thinking. But anyway, I just wanted to talk about this, kind of try to answer the question best I can as to why they make it so obvious, you know, when they do these stories of this is one of the basically shape-shifting forms that's going to be occurring in the story. But let me know what your thoughts are. You know, let me know what your thoughts are below and in the live chat. Like the video, Patreon me, or support me on my Patreon at BW Roses at the $1, $3 tier, Venmo at Brian-Woman-2, Cash App at BW Roses 98. Also, support and listen to my BW Roses discussions, how you feel audio podcast locations, except for Pandora, where you will get a podcast version of this. As well as check me out at VENMO at BW Roses and at the Teespring store as well, and at deviantart.com says BVW1979. These are outlets where you can find me outside of YouTube. But until then, guys, I am out.